Hello, I'm Jay Myers with CoreLogic, and today I'd like to introduce you to Matrix 360. Let's start off by simplifying what Matrix 360 is, and we'll take tools to do that. Matrix is a mallet. It's a tool that does one thing: it pounds. That's your MLS system called Matrix. In addition to Matrix, you have access to RealList, which is the public record system. Think about RealList as a crowbar. Now, you have two separate tools in your toolbox, a mallet and a crowbar, and you have to learn how to use both of them. Wouldn't it be nice to have one tool? A hammer that does both, pounds and pulls. That's a simple way of telling you what Matrix 360 is. It's one tool that does the job of two products. We're here to help you be successful. And Matrix 360 delivers a new level of data integration and efficiency to help you be more productive in the office and on the go. Here's how we do that. Matrix 360 takes the listing data, the mallet, and the RealList property data, the crowbar, and allows you to search across both data sets from a single system, the hammer. The result is a truly property-centric multiple listing platform, Matrix 360, that gives you, the end user, a 360-degree view of the properties in your market. What are some of the benefits of Matrix 360? It's a more efficient workflow for you. You can access the RealList data without having to launch a separate program or leaving the listing workflow, and there are no browser plugins. It's easy to use and familiar. You search, view results, print, and email tax data the same way you do the listing data in Matrix. Searches and displays are now created inside of Matrix, providing that familiar user experience that you've come to know and love. And training and support is now done on one system, not two. Technology-wise, Matrix 360 uses the same Amazon-hosted platform as Matrix, delivering you a faster, more reliable user experience. The HTML interface works well on computers and tablets. Once again, no plugins required. And the built-in RealList data runs on the high-performance Matrix servers, which ensure core functions like listing autofill are available when you need them. Here's a simple diagram to show you how we do things. The tax assessor public records for parcels in RealList counties are loaded natively within Matrix. Before, you used to have a bucket for tax and a bucket for listings, and when you wanted to get that information, you had to draw from each separate bucket. Now, all that information lives in one bucket, and that's Matrix. So, Matrix uses logic to help match listings to tax records and tax records to listings. Pretty simple. Let's take a look at the highlights of Matrix 360. Let's start off with what you already know. So you log into your Matrix system as you normally do. And let's say you're going to run a traditional listing search. And I'll just keep it simple here. I'm going to run a search for a single family, detached, colonial. Let's say we're priced between, $300 and $350, and we want something with 5 bedrooms. Now remember, you can always click on the map and see where those properties are located, so nothing changes there. You still have access to all those boundaries, parcel characteristics, trends, and points of interest as you're used to. And then when you go to your results, everything at this point is familiar to you. You get your agent single line display. Notice that nothing changes on the bottom, your button bar remains the same, and everything that you already know is here. But here's where Matrix 360 comes in. When I open up a particular listing, and I'll click on the first one here, we now go to our agent full report. Once again, everything that you're used to seeing is all right here. Nothing changes there. But what we've done is we've added in a new display. And that display is called the 360 Property View. When you switch to the 360 Property View, you're now going to get a tabbed display. And that tab display is going to contain tabs that allow access to the listing, the tax, the photos, the history, the parcel maps, and the flood maps all in one place. So as an example, I'm now on the listing tab for this particular property. Once again, this is that same agent full report that you know, nothing changes. But if I want to go to the tax information for this property, traditionally I'd have to go down and find the tax icon down on the bottom, click there, and a separate page would open up with the tax data for this particular property. In other words, I'd be going out to another system to get that information. Well, with Matrix 360, there's no longer the need to do that because we now have a tax tab right in Matrix. Click there, and the tax information appears inside of Matrix. And as I scroll down here, this is the same information that you're used to seeing when you clicked on that tax tab before on an agent full display. So now I can quickly and easily go between the listing and the tax information just by clicking on two different tabs. And again, it all lives in Matrix and it can be accessed in Matrix without having to go out to a different source to get that information. Convenient and quicker for you. The Photo tab will display exactly what you expect it to display, the photos. You can see all the photos, and of course by clicking on an individual photo, you can take another look at that picture just like you're used to. Plus remember, you can also open up the thumbnails, and you can also open all the photos at one time, so there is no change there at all. Now here's a change that I think you're going to like, the History tab. Now previously, when we had a listing available, we could click on the little clock and look at the listing history. But that history was only for the property in the MLS. If I click the History tab across the top now on the new Matrix 360 view, now I see history from the MLS, I see history from the public records, and I also see the mortgage history all in one place. Before that, again, I had to go to the Listing tab to see the history for that particular property by clicking on the clock, and then I had to go to the Tax tab to look at the history for that particular property. So now history from three different sources, MLS, public records, and mortgage, is also available in the tab on the 360 property display. And again, remember, the display is the 360 property display. Parcel maps. This particular view gives you a multi-view of the map where this property is located. In the first square, we've got the satellite view of that particular property. And as I zoom in, which you're familiar with, you can see the property, and we already have it highlighted for you so you can clearly see where that property is located. Over to the right, we show you the map view of the property. Once again, the property is in the center, and we have already measured the lot dimensions for you. So you don't have to click somewhere to measure the lot dimensions. You've got the satellite view, you've got the street view, and you can zoom in and zoom out as you deem necessary. As I scroll down to the bottom, once again, I've got another map view. And I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit, just to show you that I do have, again, all my boundaries, parcel characteristics, trends, and points of interest that you're used to here. But now we've enhanced the walk the block type of function for you. And what I mean by that is if I'm looking at this property and I want to take a look at what's happening in the surrounding area, if I click on a particular parcel, traditionally in the previous way we did things, we would just have a very small call out that opened up. It would show you the owner name, the address, and you could click to measure the lot dimensions. Well, you can still measure the lot dimensions here if you want to. But notice we have a much larger display here of information. So when I clicked on this address, I see the owner, the land use, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the square footage, the year built, the acreage, and when it was last sold and what it was sold for. Now, if I want to see the tax information for this particular property, notice I've got a tax link there. If I click there, it'll take me right into the tax card, which is again part of Matrix. Very simple, very easy to get to. If I come over to a property, let's say over here, and this property was listed, you will notice that I have again a much larger display of information, including the primary photo, the owner, the land use, bedrooms, square footage, year built, acreage, last sold, And again, I have that tax link which I can click on to go to the tax information, but I also have a link that will take me to the listing which shows what it was natively in Matrix. So now when you go and you walk the block, if the property wasn't listed, you'll just have a tax link. If it was listed, you'll have the tax link and the listing link that you can directly click on to get that specific information for that specific property. And of course, you can measure the lot dimensions and switch to the satellite views if that's what you want to do. So again, a lot of functionality here in the parcel map. And then finally, the final tab is the flood map. That will go ahead and overlay the flood zone for that particular property that you are looking at. And it has the color coding there for you. On the top, it displays the flood zone code, the date, the description, the panel, so you don't have to do anything special to get that. It's displaying that right across the top. Of course, there's a legend down at the bottom also. So all of that information is available to you, and you can zoom in and out as needed. And once again, all those boundaries and things are there for you already. So by switching to the 360 display, you now have quick and easy access to the flood map, quick and easy and informative access to all the different types of maps, aerial views, map views, and be able to walk the block. You've got history from 3 different sources: MLS, public records, and mortgage. You've got all your photos in one place. You've got a comprehensive tax card available to you. And, of course, the all-important listing information. That's why we call it a 360-degree view, because it gives you a full view of that particular property coming in from different angles. If you like that property and you want to print it, just like you're used to, you check it. And then down at the bottom of the screen, your button bar remains the same. So if I want to print this property, I click the print option, but now I can print out a 360-degree view of the property. So I choose that particular report to print. I can choose whether or not I want my header or footer when I print it out. And notice that I can now print all those tabs or only tabs that I want. So maybe I want to print out the listing, the tax, and the photos. Maybe not the history or the parcel map or the flood map. But again, you do what you want. In this case, I'm going to choose the listing, tax, and photos to be printed. Down at the bottom of the screen, your button bar remains the same. You can email that as a PDF, you can print to PDF, you can preview, or you can print and send it directly to your printer. So what does that look like? Well, let's preview it and see. So here's what the preview looks like. There's my header across the top of the page because I elected to have that. Here you see the report from the listing source. And as I scroll down, you'll now see the tax card that has been printed. And then as I continue to go down, I will see all of the photos. So all of that information can be printed at one time just by going to the bottom of the screen and clicking print. And what happens next is between you and your printer. So printing is exactly what you're used to. The only difference is you can choose a la carte what you want or don't want to print by choosing the checkboxes on the left-hand side. If you want to email this property to a client or customer, you can do that. Just click the email button, and this is the same thing you're used to. Fill in the recipient, put in the subject line, put in the body of the message, and click send. And we all know when we email in Matrix, email goes to the client portal. So that's what you know, plus some new stuff now on what happens with the search results. But here's what's different. When you go into the search tab, in addition to be able to search for properties that are listed in MLS, you can also come down and now search for public records. When I choose public records, I have a search form that opens up, and now I can search using tax fields to be able to find properties that are not listed, just like I would have to go to Real List before to do that. So notice I've got owner names and owner occupied, and I've got last sale dates and estimated values and assessed values. So now I can dig down a little bit deeper and find information from the tax side. I also can add fields down here just like I'm used to in Matrix. So the same thing that you're used to doing with adding fields is the same when you're searching for public records using the drop down that you see here. So as an example, I'm going to search for, let's say, my last name. And I'm going to go right to the map. So again, very familiar, right? Know how to put in a search criteria, know how to display things on the map, can switch between maps and satellites, and once again I've got all my boundaries available to me. Now when I go to my search results, the display that I see, because I did a public record search, is going to be what's called the tax grid. And the tax grid columns are going to be the same columns that you see when you would do that search in RealList. So when you go to RealList and do a search and look at the results, the same exact columns are right across the top of the page. Things like owner mailing address, things like assessed total value, things like tax amount, land use, things like that you're used to seeing in the tax records are now available in the tax grid, but remember, you're in Matrix. And then over here on the left-hand side, you can see these little icons here. If there are photos because the property was listed, you could click there and see them. The little bubble tells you the status of the property. In this case, the property was listed and sold. Whereas I come down here, this property was expired. And if I continue to move through, you can see where that information comes in. Here's a property that was released. If you go over to the right-hand side, you will also see a column that shows you the MLS number that's associated with that property. Now keep in mind, you can move these columns around just like you can in Matrix. So if you prefer the MLS number to be over a little bit further to the left, just simply drag it and drop it. You can also sort the columns, and you can also set them as defaults. Plus, you still are able to insert any columns like you can in Matrix, and then again, make them your defaults. So again, is it familiar to you? Yes. Is the display different? Yes, it's a tax grid, but everything else you can do is the same as far as dragging, dropping, sorting, sizing, saving defaults, but it's just providing the tax information to you. If you select a property that was never listed before and click on it, what you're going to see, again, that 360 property display. Notice the tax card is here. But notice there's no listing tab or photo tab because the property's never been listed, so we don't have that information, so we just gray the tabs out for you. We have access to the history, but that's going to come, in this case, from the public records. No MLS history, we still get the mortgage history, right? Your parcel maps are still there, your flood maps are still there, so nothing changes at that juncture. So just to recap, you can search for a property the normal way and get the 360 view, and you can also search for public records and get the 360 view. Now, one other thing that people like to do in Matrix and RealList is they like to go and either export or create mailing labels. So I've already created a search called labels just to facilitate the process here. And what I've done is I've gone in and done a search using the map search. And I'll give you an example. Maybe I'm doing a just listed or just sold campaign, and I just sold the property here or just listed the property here, whatever the case may be. So what I'm wanting to do is I'm wanting to go into this particular area and maybe send out some postcards or some mailers letting folks know that I just listed or just sold a property in their area. Now, what I can do is I can use my freehand polygon tool to draw out the area, just like I did here. And then I can go right to my results and have all the people, in this case, in this particular subdivision, named Oxford. And notice in the columns on the left, in addition to the photos and the listing status, I have another icon which signifies this property is a short sale. So let's start out with exporting first. Let's say I want to export this information out. I can check the entire group or the entire page by clicking the check mark on the top or selecting all across the top. And then I have an export button at the bottom. What you're going to notice is the exports take on the look and feel of RealList. And if you have been in RealList before, you know when you export, you get a certain number of exports per month. In this case, it's 10,000. It'll tell you how many I've exporting in this particular case, and it will then tell me how many I have left. When I click the export option, it opens up those properties in a spreadsheet for me. So now when I'm in Excel, I can basically do whatever Excel lets me do. So exporting takes on the look and feel of Realist. If I want to create mailing labels for this particular search result, I just simply come down to print, and I can see the different types of mailing labels that I can create. They're 5160 mailing labels, and depending on who I'm targeting, whether it's the current resident and the property address, or maybe the owner name and the property address, I can choose the option that fits appropriately. So maybe I'm marketing to the current resident and the property address. Click there, go print to PDF, and there are my mailing labels that I'm going to be marketing to the current resident. Once again, could be used for a just listed or just sold campaign. So now I take my 5160 labels, put them in my printer, make sure I'm not printing on the backside, click print, and there are your mailing labels. A little tip from Jay: once you create mailing labels, it's always a good idea to download them to your desktop, because that way if you accidentally click out of this and lose your labels and you have to download again, that goes against your total count. So always save your work in case you accidentally do something that makes it disappear. One other Matrix 360 integration you need to be aware of is when you're using the mobile version of Matrix, and that's the version where you would go to your mobile device, like your phone, open up the browser of choice, log into Matrix like you normally do on your desktop, laptop, or tablet. And when you have the mobile version of Matrix up, you're going to notice that when you search there, you're now going to have a tax property search in addition to your regular property statuses like your single family, multifamily, and so on and so forth. So when you click there, you'll be able to search for a property by street number, street name, owner name, first name, and county. It will also remember the last 15 searches that you've done. So if I did a search in the office and I want to pull up that search here, like I did earlier for my last name, and I click there, here are all of those properties that I found earlier from the tax records, and when I click on one, it'll go ahead and display the owner information, the location information, and the tax information for me, and then I can continue to scroll through them just like I'm doing here. And remember, this would be the look and feel if I was on my smartphone or my tablet if I wanted to use this interface. Now always keep in mind that when you're on the Matrix mobile version, you always have the ability to launch the full site if you truly want to do that. One other thing to keep in mind too is that when you're inputting a listing, so the workflow is we go to input, let's say we're adding a new listing, single family input form, and you start a new listing from the tax record, just like you did before. You come down here, you pick the county that you're looking for, you use one of the 3 filters to get the record. Again, that can be tax ID, street number and name, or the owner last name. And when you search, you're now searching for that information that is now housed within Matrix. So you're not actually having to go make a call out to the Realist program. It's now much quicker and faster because it's going to that one bucket of commingled information, public records and MLS data, all stored within Matrix. And then simply click Fill, and from there you can begin your listing. An additional item to note is that now you can also email tax records to the client portal. So if I were to do a search for a non-listed property and pull up that record and email it, I could have that record come directly to a client portal. Simply click on it from a consumer perspective, see where that property is located, notice the notation here, listing currently not for sale because it was from a tax record. And then if I click on that particular option, it will then show me the tax card only because remember, it's not a current listing. So you can send listings that are for sale to the portal. You can send non-listed properties that are in the tax records to the portal, or a combination of both. So let's quickly recap the benefits of Matrix 360 for you. HTML, compatible with all devices and browsers. mobile friendly. The speed and stability of Matrix you're used to is now all put together with the public records. Forms, displays, and results are all built in Matrix. MLS and tax searches are both found in Matrix. Your recent searches are now available from MLS and tax data. Integrated MLS and tax data on reports, integrated MLS and tax fields on searches, the mailing label creation, tax and MLS data on each parcel map. Full detailed reports on MLS and tax include things like tax data, MLS data, history, all the things you see in the list. Auto popping or auto filling using tax data, which again is housed in Matrix. You can export, and the client portal also allows you to email those tax records directly to it. So hopefully you can see that for you, using Matrix every day has now been enhanced because the public records and MLS data is all together in one place. You know how to search in Matrix for a listing. You can now search for a tax record in Matrix the same way. You know how to view a listing in Matrix. You can view the tax records the same way in Matrix. Printing, emailing, all the same. Labels, just the same as you're used to in Realist, but now you're doing that in the Matrix system. So Matrix 360, a better workflow for you and one system to learn, not two, which makes it a little bit easier on you.